We are back with another DNVR Avalanche playoff series preview. This time, Edmonton and LA, the battle of the great one. I mean, I guess Gretzky also played for St. Louis and New York, so there's like some other teams in there. But
yeah, but
like
the real battle of the great one.
So I feel like these are the main ones, right?
Yeah.
when he was good,
Yeah.
not that he wasn't good at the end, but he was really, really good with these two teams. Doesn't play in the league anymore, though. Who does play in the league might still be the next great one in Connor McDavid and Edmonton.
Might still be the next great
Might
one.
still be. Did I say get in there too?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, God. Oh, well. We're already off the rails.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Look,
Wordsmith over here.
Edmonton are the favorites, right? Not only because of the seeding, but you look at these lineups, and Edmonton just has more firepower.
When you have the, 4 of the last 6 Hart trophies in your lineup.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Their record, also solid. They were much more competing with Vegas at the top of the Pacific than they were competing with LA for that second, third spot. So
It was a strong back half for them, though. The front part of this season, really kind of the run up to Christmas, there's genuine concern that this group may not even be able to make the playoffs, let alone make a deep run. And I mean, it's taken Connor McDavid doing
superhuman
historic,
stuff. Yeah.
historic things to get them here and give them credit. The team, the depth, the production really picked up. Matthias Ekholm, Evan Bouchard, really strong back half of the season. You give them all full marks for getting there. Stuart Skinner, I'm a little bit more skeptical on than others, but again, full marks for what he did in the second half of the season. You worry about what you saw in that first half, though, with the storylines that have always kind of followed this team.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Oilers is you're kind of always just waiting for them to fall apart.
Right.
We'll get to it at some point on one of these videos, but you're waiting for the Bruins to have a bad week. Well, it feels like the Oilers haven't had a bad week in about a month.
Well, it's more than that.
You really feel that confident that that's going to continue when you're only playing exclusively good teams who are playing at a really high level and who are focused solely on shutting you down, and when you're not getting power play chances.
That's the concern for me, is you're talking about the best power play in history with this Edmonton Oilers team.
Which is a great thing to have.
Except for when you're not getting power plays in the playoffs. And there is, not that their production is poor at 5-on-5, but there is a significant difference.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and the 100-point season that he has, knowing that well over half of his production came on a power play.
All these guys, the top three, all three of Edmonton's 100-point scorers, more than 50% of their production came at
Connor McDavid was third in the NHL in even point scoring, so
I know,
can
but
at least
I know, but that doesn't change that he was near 60% of his production coming on the power play.
I think the list sums it up. There's 4 dudes with real point totals. And then the next dude on the list has 43 points.
Yeah.
It just dries up so fast for that hockey team.
There's top heavy and there's that.
Yep.
We talked about it the other day. Of all the teams in the West to pull in the first round, I actually do think this may have been the worst case scenario for Edmonton. I'm not saying they can't beat them.
100% agree with this.
And I'm not saying that they won't have other challenges as they get deeper. But we emphasize so much with the Avs and wanting to get Seattle is it allows you to settle into the playoffs, theoretically. It allows you to settle in, get some of your guys back, and get into a rhythm. Edmonton, I feel like, is a team that needed that as well. This almost went off the rails last year in this same exact matchup, and Connor McDavid took over. LA couldn't get a save. If LA can get a save, I think this is a sneaky, scary team in the West, and it's one that, again, if you're limiting power plays and just a team that is designed to slow you down, slog it through the neutral zone, and they've got the horses to attempt to shut down a McDavid Draisaitl, this is a bad draw for Edmonton of all teams you could pull in the first round.
So I want to go to Megan on this one. unlike last year's playoffs, they have a healthy Darnell Nurse. They added to their defense at the deadline. I'm not going to say can Edmonton's defense be better than other teams, but can they keep up at least?
Better than they could last year.
That's not a ringing endorsement.
It's still like I've thought about it a lot. I do think they've become more well-rounded, but by itself, like if I'm just looking at the defense, I think just keep up is maybe where I'm at for now until they demonstrate otherwise, truthfully.
Okay.
Because this is going to be now a decor that they have the addition of Ekholm, but like can that how does that look in the playoffs, I guess, is my concern. Because we have some familiarity with Darnell Nurse, and it's just okay.
It's not great.
No, and then the questions surrounding goaltending, also
It's
a problem.
still very valid.
I know they can score goals. I've never doubted that. But I still have some concerns.
So I love what Megan just talked about. Like, this is my issue with, it's not just Edmonton. There's a couple teams like this. You see the last couple of Stanley Cup champions and what their defense has looked like. I was having a conversation with Craig Morgan from PHNX recently, and he was talking about people try to dance around it like you have to have elite players to win championships. You just do. When all things are kind of neutralized, you need elite players. And I think that's more and more true every year on the back end. You have to have a true top pairing. You've got to have a defensive pairing that you know you can roll out there. You can win matchups. They can play late in games, things like that. Tampa Bay absolutely has it. Obviously, the Colorado Avalanche have it. The Pittsburgh Penguins had it with Chris Letang. You know, before that, the St. Louis Blues, Alex Pietrangelo, Washington Capitals, John Carlson. Who is it in Edmonton?
I mean, it's supposed to be Darnell Nurse, right? It's just
Right.
You don't believe in that.
No way, dude. Not a shot. I think Darnell Nurse is a good player, but I think he might be the most overrated defenseman in the NHL. Like, the way people talk about Darnell Nurse is like, we must be watching different guys. And I just don't know if they've got the horses on the back end to be truly a contender. It's hard to outscore your problems that far into June.
This is the tough part for me, and my X factor for Edmonton is Matthias Ekholm, because he has to be the guy defensively for them. He has to go out there and play the best defensive hockey of his career if Edmonton wants to actually push for a cup. I think
they're in trouble then. If that's
I
what they're banking
agree.
on.
I agree, and that's exactly the point I was getting at. Is you look at the Avalanche's quality defense last year, they had Josh Manson as a depth defender, as a guy who can help shut you down the lineup, because they already had Taze and McCarr at the top.
Right.
Edmonton is adding dudes to their top pairing and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And that is a serious concern for me. So we'll see.
Evan Bouchard, good player, still
Yeah.
young. I
Maybe one day he'll be that guy.
I get the flash of JT Comfort just straight stiff arming him off that puck, and cool. See you later.
It's always been Bouchard's thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't use the size well. I'm the big believer of Matthias Ekholm here, so
You are.
I'll say my piece and move on. But Matthias Ekholm is exactly what the Edmonton Oilers needed. They just needed a rugged defender that can handle a puck. He's not like an amazing offensive defenseman, but he's plenty capable. He fits in perfectly with what they want to do. He checks all the boxes of what they needed. There's just not very many guys that are going to come available that are going to be able to help, that they're going to be able to drop in at the top of their defensive lineup. One came available. They paid a heavy price for him, and they've experienced a great deal of regular season success in the limited run that he's been there. If there is a reason to believe in Edmonton this year, it's that they have Matthias Ekholm, and last year they didn't. And they're adding Matthias Ekholm to Darnell Nurse. It's not either or. They have them both now. Those are both pretty good skaters. Those are both pretty physical players. Taking some of that demand off of Darnell Nurse should make him better in a best of seven.
Well,
Ekholm has to answer his own questions after a really bad postseason last year, where
This
the
is my
Avs
thing.
ripped him apart. And there was no getting around it. They ripped him apart. but he has also shown much better in the postseason. And the biggest question is when you compare him to Tampa Bay to Colorado, can Matthias Ekholm be Ryan McDonough? That's the guy. That's for me. He was always the linchpin to Tampa Bay. Not having him this year is why I am out on Tampa Bay. And the addition of Ekholm and all the things that he brings to that Oilers lineup, it just raises up that defense, and I think it gives them a fighting chance because the elite talent at forward, it's so good.
I mean,
their forward core is so good.
I think it gives them more than a fighting chance if we're talking strictly about round one here.
It definitely it's going to help. I agree with Jesse that the Kings are the team that are best equipped to handle this because they're the only ones with Anze, Kopitar, and Phil Danault that are built to handle the centers.
Yep.
Defensively, nobody else out west has that.
Yep.
And just stylistically,
Everybody else wants to run and gun with them, which is how they win games. Is because we see the Avs try and get into it with them all the time.
They'll go shot for shot.
Those two teams will always just go crazy on each other because they want to do that. They bring out that like monster in each other where they just want to run and gun together.
And so it's funny because that's where you see Colorado flex the defensive strength. It's like, cool, we'll run and gun with you because we believe that we've got better players in the back end, more equipped to shut down your transitions and.
It's completely a clash of styles, right? As we can bring up LA's record here. You have the roller coaster of Edmonton, and then you have LA, which is kind of just steady this whole season long.
Good
just
hockey team.
Taking care of their business, doing what they need to do.
Good hockey team that has spent a lot of the year not getting a save. I think Korpisalo is interesting. I'm not nowhere close to writing his name in pen as like the difference maker. But like if you can get solid starts out of Jonas Korpisalo, that's what I think not only makes LA an interesting team in this series, but like if you get some goaltending there, I wouldn't write off seeing LA in the Western Conference Final. Like I think they've got a sneaky good team there.
I really like the team that LA has built. I just really don't like the matchup that they drew. As much as we're talking about how I think, they match up with the this and that, they don't have the horses to go punch for punch with a big dog like Connor McDavid playing at the peak of his powers.
That's what happened last year.
And if Leon Draisaitl is healthy and which he is this time around, Darnell Nurse is healthy this time around. Like I really, really, really like Edmonton in this series. As much as I grew to appreciate the Kings this year as the constant hater of them all year. I just think that Edmonton is in a groove right now. They feel really good about themselves. And I think that there's just something to be said about a team that's playing with a lot of confidence in a matchup, going into a repeat matchup that they know they won last year. All the nonsense aside, they won that thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, good.
What's the status of Kevin Fiala? Is he?
I would love to know that answer.
Because we're talking about additions, and that's an addition I think that also LA, didn't have last year that could benefit them in this postseason.
Yep.
Question marks surrounding
Because
that.
they needed a goal. They needed a goal last year.
And Kevin Fiala playing, with a Kaprizov last year likes to play that way. That I think he could keep up with an Edmonton team if he's healthy. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw my computer around. And honestly,
you're
on
hurt
the
someone with that
conversation
thing.
of Ekholm, similar thought. Like Ekholm last year with Nashville, in the same way that Edmonton didn't have an Ekholm didn't have in Nashville his forward group show up in front of him the way that Edmonton will. And I think that's another interesting point that these additions made both these teams, LA, Edmonton, better. If Fiala is healthy, I think that's definitely going to strengthen LA's case. But I still have some belief in Edmonton too, because I say it all the time. They do appear more well-rounded.
The issue I just can't get over with LA, and I'm pretty sure I made them my X factor, but it's Korpisalo.
Yeah.
Going against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, you have a big old question mark in your neck.
You're talking about a team in LA that had a negative goal differential in like February.
Right.
And go out and they make the big move. You make a deep cut in trading a franchise icon like Jonathan Quick, who won you Stanley Cups. And you go and get Jonas Korpisalo, and you end up with you're well into the positive goal differential You started getting saves.
Yeah.
You were scoring plenty, but they just started getting saves on a regular basis. And so as much as it is a cop-out to be like, oh, well, if your goalie plays well, you should be competitive in a playoff series. The goaltending was like the thing that the LA Kings needed this year more than anything else, because Phoenix Copley was the reason that they were afloat. Otherwise, they're not here.
So this is my thing with going back to last year's series between these two. No Drew Doughty.
Yeah.
No Victor Arvidsson. And LA was twice one goal away from moving on. And I just look at this group and I say, the Avs proved last year, you don't have to shut down Connor McDavid.
You just have to contain him
in
enough.
In a 7-game series, you have to contain him enough, and then you got to shut down the rest of that lineup, which, as we talked about, if you're not feeding them power plays and stuff, the offense isn't, it's better than maybe people give it credit for, but it is not as deep as you would like it to be if you're Edmonton. If Korpisalo can continue giving them some saves and they can just keep McDavid bottled up, to Megan's point, you didn't have Kevin Fiala last year. You're going to have Drew Doughty. He's a guy who's going to be healthy for them this year. You've got Victor Arvidsson. You've got a little bit more offensive punch.
I mean,
we're running through this, and it's funny that these teams played each other in the first round, but they've also changed so much since last year that it's like there's a lot of big changes that have taken place that make these series different.
And look, I think the predictions reflect that this might be one of the tightest series on the Western side. The East is a different animal.
Yeah.
But on the Western side, one LA pick and Jesse. You think they get them done?
And again, we mentioned this before we started recording this one.
Totally.
Any result here in either direction doesn't surprise me. I took LA because I think they're going to get a save. It's what you mentioned a minute ago, AJ. Mm-hmm. It's been a while since Edmonton's hit a rough patch, and you're just constantly waiting for it with this group.
Yeah.
And I don't trust that Edmonton can keep a puck out of their own net. I just think this is a weird matchup, and LA gets some revenge for last year.
Anytime you pick a 7-game series, too, to go
Could
7,
go either way.
You're talking about you've coin flipped that,
right?
So I can see where you're coming from. I obviously am going to disagree. I just think Edmonton's got it this year, and I'm just buying Oilers stock in this series. We'll see how it goes. See how I feel next round, whatever. But for right now, man, I just think the Oilers are rolling, and I think they're about to body LA. I think it'll be a fun series. I'm looking forward to watching it, but I don't think at the end of it you're going to look at it and say it was super close.
I think I amend my answer to give LA one more game than I expected, but I still favor Edmonton in this series. And it has a lot to do with what AJ just said, how good they got at the time of year that they did. I think that's going to be a little bit scary come game one.
It's really, really, really hard to bet against a dude who just put up 150 points in a regular season. Right. Like, just on a completely different level.
There's MVP campaigns, and then there are MVP campaigns.
Exactly.
Like, this thing is, It's funny, we didn't even really talk about Connor McDavid all that much about it. It's just so understood.
It's just a fact.
That he's just that good. It's like, what do you want us to say? He's the man, and they're going to have a hard time stopping him.
Yep. Just something you're going to have to deal with against Edmonton. We're going to wrap up this series preview. We have more of the West coming in this playlist. If you're on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. That helps us out a ton. And stay tuned for the next matchup.